Welcome in everyone to another episode of the Payne and Drain Show following another Lions win, even though it wasn't necessarily the blowout everyone was hoping for. My name is Zach Payne. I am one half of the show, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Alex Drain. And Alex, how are we feeling after that weird game?
It was definitely weird. It was one of those games where you just kind of wanted it to be over. Like, there was never to me a sense that the Bengals were going to win the game, but it just was like eh, we got the early lead. It's 14-0, then 14-3, then Lions go up 28-3. You're like, okay, this is over with. And then the Bengals just kept hanging around, kept making them play more competitive drives than you would have liked, but it just is one of those. There was a few of them last year too, where you get that sense of like, can we just like simulate to the end of the game and move on? Because I just don't want anyone to get injured, and it playing out those kinds of games can be a little annoying. But they, still got a win, and it's remarkable that a double-digit win like that can be the cause for consternation among some in the fan base. We've come a long way.
Yeah, and I know that I like feel my feeling throughout the game is I was like, okay, this I'm not worried about the Lions losing, as you mentioned, but this is just getting a little too close for comfort. Like, which is hilarious to think about. It's a 10-point lead and everything's a little sketchy and stressful, but Jamar Chase decided that he was kind of sick of only scoring 3 points a week, I guess. So the Bengals black out in the fourth quarter. They put up like 200 yards on 3 drives and get 3 touchdowns to end the game before a Derek Barnes safety sack, a safety that counted, would seal things up. So we do have a good amount of things to go over, but we actually are going to start with a little bit of a different gear today. Is we're going to start with the injuries because there's been a lot of conversation about injuries. And one of the things that allowed the Bengals to come back in this game is suddenly the Lions were down another corner as Terrion Arnold was seen leaving the game with a shoulder injury. And the past few days have been very bizarre on the Terrion Arnold front because at first we were told he's going to be out for a while. It might not be season ending, but it's probably going to be a while. Then we were told it's going to be season ending. We'll see him next year. It's done. And then we get a report that he got a second opinion. And not only is his season not over, he's not, as of today, we're recording this Wednesday morning and this will go out Wednesday afternoon. He has not been placed on IR and he might return this month. What a bizarre sequence of events. How are you feeling as all that news was circulating?
So I actually didn't see the report about the season ending thing until after I saw the second opinion. There was the first one, right? Because like Dan spoke on Monday, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll be down for a while. We're not sure the severity." I saw that, and then there was the next day that both of those other reports came out. And I didn't see the first one until after the second one. So then I was like, "Wow, that was quite a ride." The thing I enjoyed about it is the memes from the Monty injury are back, where the Photoshop of Dan Campbell wearing a doctor's jacket saying like this is the second opinion. I don't know. That's strange. Like he'd obviously it's still a shoulder, right? Like that was his injury
Yes.
the previous week, and then you just sit him until it's right. Like there's no reason to rush this back, and obviously they're going to be in tough against Kansas City and probably Tampa Bay, but I don't need. At the end of the day, the regular season is not what we're playing for. So just do what needs to be done to get this right, and don't rush it back. Don't exacerbate another situation with this. I mean, you've already dodged a bullet with the second opinion. Don't tempt fate again, is what I would say.
Yeah, and the Lions have really been dodging bullets with these kind of injuries. DJ Reed, the first thing he said is when he got his hamstring injury, he was like, "Oh, it's off the bone. My season is over." And he's going to be out about like 4 or 5 weeks, but he'll be back. Terry on suddenly he'll be back, and the the discourse around Terry on is so toxic at this point because you have one subsection of the fan base that is viewing him as Jeff Okuda too. And then you have the subsection of the fan base is like, no, he's actually good though. Look at how good the Lions defense is with him on the field. And I know Terrion hasn't been perfect, but he's not going to be. He's a corner in the NFL in 2025. There's no such thing. Go watch Pat Surtain in Denver, and he still gets beat every now and again because that's just how defense is nowadays. It's hard to play defense in this league. So I do fall more into the camp of this is like a miracle that Terrion is going to get to keep his season going, keep his season alive because the Lions desperately, desperately need him. They desperately need to get healthy at corner because now we are going to be heading into Kansas City, as you mentioned, with Amik Robertson and Rock Ya-Sin as the starting outside corners with Avonte Maddox presumably in the slot. Other injury news, we'll talk more about Terrion in the secondary in a little bit, by the way. Other injury news, Amon-Ra St. Brown is not at practice today on Wednesday, which I'm not worried about him necessarily. The guys I am worried about, though, Taylor Decker, who missed the game against the Bengals with that injury, and it really sounds like the Lions have been tempting fate by playing him so far this season. And now they're at a point where it's like, okay, he's not getting better, so we're going to sit him until he's better. He might not play against Kansas City. I'd be prepared for that possibility that he won't play against Kansas City. Dan Skipper was elevated to the 53-man roster earlier, so we'll talk about Manu in a little bit and why that might be necessary. And then Terrion obviously not practicing, Kirby Joseph not practicing. He Kirby Joseph's knee, I swear he gets banged up like twice a game and he doesn't practice, but he comes out every Sunday and he gets another interception. So I don't know what to make of this either, but he also might not play. And then the scary one that happened, Khalif Raymond was working off to the side at practice today. I don't know about you, Alex. I'm shocked that he is possibly not going to miss time.
Yeah, it was a good example of how NFL players are kind of superheroes to some degree about what their bodies are able to go through. That he looked really bad when that injury happened to the punt return during the game, and then he ended up walking off, I think, under his own power, right? And then he walked into the tent. I mean, that alone was pretty shocking. So once we saw that, at that point, all bets are off about his ability to go moving forward because it didn't seem like he was going to get up from that one. It's pretty remarkable the contact that these guys can go through and then still soldier on.
Yeah, for those of you who did not see Khalif Raymond on a punt return, he kind of stumbled over a defender and was leaning forward, and his head just got compressed with his spine, like hit on the very top of the head. Very scary looking injury. Glad that he seems to be relatively okay. Getting into the game now, and we'll start on the offensive side of the ball as we usually do. The first half was I found myself disappointed with the offensive output in the first half. They put up 14 points. They have a turnover via a strip sack on the second drive, but they also were not running the ball as well as they could have in this game. And a lot of people were attributing that to too much up the middle, up the gut against a Bengals defense that really struggles defending the outside runs. What were your thoughts on I guess the offense as a whole and where you felt some of the struggles were in that first half?
It seemed like the Bengals were selling out to stop the run. That was my impression. It also felt like maybe too many runs on early downs, you might say, because when the Lions were passing the ball, they were basically unstoppable so long as pass protection held up. I mean, Goff had four incompletions, I think, in this game, and at least one was batted down that I remember. I mean, it was pretty much if he had time to throw, he was completing the pass. So it felt like maybe they should pass a little more on early downs because the Bengals seemed to prioritize stopping the run and then just trying to gamble with pressure on third down to see if they could get off the field. And they had some success with it, but they also got ripped up. And at the end of the day, they still gave up 30, 35 points too from the defense. So as a whole, you can't really say this was a poor offensive performance, but it did feel like in that first half they were leaving some meat on the bone. But it's a combination of that aggressiveness to stop the run and then the pass protection issues the Lions had. And I mean, there's one drive in the first half in which the second drive in which the Lions are marching along into Bengals territory without many issues, and then there's a strip sack that turns the ball over. So that kind of was the formula there, and I think we kind of have to accept to some degree that when teams can get consistent pressure on the Lions, it's going to slow this offense down. There's really not much that can slow this offense down. That's the one thing. And we saw little bits of it in this game, and obviously we are intimately familiar with it from the first game of the season.
Yep. And part of those issues in pass protection, as I alluded to earlier, Giovanni Manu was starting at left tackle, his first career start, and it went about how you would expect. I'm pretty sure PFF had his pass pro grade as like a 17, which not good. The Lions were leaving him on an island with Trey Hendrickson a few too many times for my liking. And the Lions also did your favorite thing of trying to block Trey Hendrickson, noted leading sack getter from last year, with Brock Wright, a tight end. And that went horribly. The Hendrickson's second sack of the game where he Brock Wright is trying to block him was one of the saddest attempts I've seen at a block as Brock Wright just gets completely pantsed on that play. What do you make of the Giovanni Manu experience and just how the Lions attacked handling a star edge rusher in Hendrickson?
Yeah, I thought they needed to help him out quite a bit more. From what I saw with Manu against the edge rushers of the Bengals, some of it was Hendrickson, but there were some other guys he was going up
Osai
against
had one
too.
as well.
Yep, yep. It just didn't. He didn't look ready for prime time, and that is a point of discussion for this upcoming game if Decker cannot go because we've seen Dan Skipper fill in for Decker in the past, and it's wobbly, but it's better than that. That was really bad. And from a pass protection standpoint, I thought Manu was okay on run blocking. I didn't have a lot of issues there, but right now he's just not advanced enough as a pass protector for me to want to continue going with it. I think you could probably say that Manu's progress through one season is promising-ish. Like last year, he couldn't play at all. This year, he's on the field. He can hang in there as a run blocker, but not ready in the next phase. Maybe next year, you hope things have developed enough from a pass protection standpoint that he can be used more. But in terms of giving this team the best chance to succeed in a big game on Sunday, I think it has to be Skipper at left tackle. Just in my view, like there was a gap there, and if you're going to go with Manu, you need to give him more help. But ideally, I would not. I would not go with Manu another game. I think we saw enough of that, and let's try something else.
I would be at the point where I'm willing to see more looks of Manu as the sixth offensive lineman, like
Yeah.
in the future,
Yep.
where maybe you want to just get more of a road grader out there for the run blocking, or maybe you want like if you have a rep where you have him blocking someone as a sixth offensive lineman, that's fine. But as a start, it is the Dan Skipper problem, where Dan Skipper was phenomenal as a sixth
Yep.
offensive lineman, but as a actual starting tackle, he kind of doesn't hold up. And I feel like Manu is developing to be Dan Skipper, which obviously he has the upside to be better than that, and I'm sure eventually he can. But as of now, he's just a worse version of Dan Skipper. So why would you not just play Dan Skipper? And Skipper was hurt throughout training camp in the start of the year, so it makes sense that it didn't happen until now. But now that Skip is healthy, just get him out there for as a band-aid solution. You're gonna have to support him anyways with chips and whatnot. But yeah, I did not love Manu. I also thought Graham had a tough game from the center spot. He had a couple penalties, he got beat way too cleanly on some of those run plays, especially down by the goal line where the Bengals were, like you said, selling out to stop the run. It just was not the a great offensive line day.
No, the one guy that PFF really liked was Mahogany. I don't have a major take on that. I didn't have time to do a full rewatch. I was just skimming through the highlights again, so I can't corroborate that. But it's one of those things where the pass pro wasn't great, run blocking up and down, and yet they still ran for a pretty solid margin. There were plenty of stuffs in there, but they got us some chunks. They ran it in for some touchdowns, and that's kind of the remarkable thing about the team is we can look at those kinds of games and think, man, it really wasn't good and blah blah blah, and yet still gained a lot of yards and scored a lot of points. So they have enough pieces to circumvent it against a defense like Cincinnati's.
Yeah. Now the big story offensively was this is David Montgomery's homecoming game. He hasn't been back. He hasn't played football in the area since he was in high school. And similar to back in those days when he was a quarterback, he threw for a touchdown in this one in a play that gave you some anxiety when the Lions came out in Wildcat, much to your chagrin. But he ends up passing for a touchdown there, and he runs in for another one. So a nice little two touchdown day in his homecoming for Monty.
So they got down to, I think it was first and goal on the one, and then they get stuffed on first and goal for a TFL. They move back to like the three, and then they come out on second and goal at the three, and they're in the Wildcat. And I'm just like, oh my God, what are we doing here? The Wildcat is my least favorite play on offense. If you're gonna do the Wildcat, you gotta sprinkle this in a few times because you're just removing so much of your threat when you're taking the ball out of the quarterback's hands and you're placing it in someone where there's no pass threat. But it works brilliantly here for exactly that reason because the other team sees Wildcat, they think he's just going to run with it, they sell out to stop it, and then boom, execute it. That's perfect. If you want to, after doing that, after you put that on film, if they want to run the Wildcat one time this coming week, I will allow that because now you've shown something. Now maybe you can delete a guy in the box because of it, but that's always my belief. Nice for Monty to throw that ball. His vision on the drive where he scores the rushing touchdown also was terrific. He had two great bounces on that drive to get into the end zone. Just another nice day from him.
Yeah, which we expected given the emotional weight of that game. So, good for Monty. As for the pass game, Sam Laporta had his best game of the season by far. He was doing great things after the catch. Amon-Ra doing his normal thing. But Jamison Williams, another week, another quiet day. This time he just didn't even get the targets. He ends up with one rush for 1 yard on the very first play, one catch for 9 yards on the first drive, and that's it. Now, it's again a little bit of a war online, the JMO defenders versus the JMO slanderers, I'll call them. Williams in this game taking up a lot of attention in the secondary, blocking like a maniac, but he wasn't getting the ball. Are you concerned with this little trend of JMO not really being involved in the offense? Like aside from two catches against Chicago, that one that he had a big run on and one that he was left open for a touchdown, we haven't seen the downfield threat from JMO this year. Do you attribute that more to defenses taking it away, or is JMO himself doing something wrong?
Not entirely sure. I haven't watched the all 22s to know what's going on down the field. We do know that he backs the safeties off and clears out the middle and all that stuff we've talked about. The last few weeks, it certainly appeared that him and Goff are just out of rhythm, and perhaps you can attribute the lack of the deep shots to that. They're not connecting on intermediate stuff. They're not timing those things up, so obviously they're not even going to go deep in that situation. I don't know if it's open there and Goff doesn't throw it. I would just like to see JMO get back in a rhythm. That this coming game, just get him some stuff underneath to start, right? Like we talk about this so many times, the JMO mesh. Give us that, right? Just run him across, throw him the ball, give him some easy yards. The JMO end arounds haven't been working as much recently, so maybe not that, but just even like like a quick out or comebacks or just something to get the ball in his hands, rekindle that connection. Maybe after you get a couple times going, then you can go with the deep shot again and start working that back into the offense because it's going to need to be a part of the offense and they need to work on getting that back going again because it's been a couple weeks now where it just hasn't clicked. I mean, the Ravens game, they hit him twice on the first drive and then never again the rest of the game. Then the Cleveland game is a debacle. And then this one, he isn't really involved at all. So it's been close to three full games now with him out of the picture. And they need to work on getting that back uh, to a productive place.
Yeah. And there are even some plays where I'll see a DB lined up 10 yards off of him, and I'm like, just throw it to him at the snap and leave him one-on-one with the defender. Worst case, you get 3, 4 yards. Give him some screens. Give him like he just needs the ball in his hands a little bit. Like it doesn't need to be excessive. Don't force deep shots if they're not there, obviously. but there are a lot of schematic things you can do. You look at the Gibbs receiving touchdown in this game, where he's lined up as a wide receiver. You have Tesla and Laporta blocking. Give a concept like that to JMO, where it's like get him in open space and say, if you beat this defender, you might be gone. Because that's where JMO shines with the ball in his hands. And for as good of a blocker as he is, for as good as he is at opening up the middle of the field for St. Brown and Laporta, there is more to unlock there, as you say. Speaking of Tesla, he catches another touchdown in this one. He actually caught a pass with two hands for once. Good to see him back involved in the offense because he had kind of been quiet for the last few weeks. And aside from that, do you have any other notes on the offense?
Well, Laporta should get mentioned. He had a ton of
Yeah,
yards. Was one of
yeah,
his highest yardage games of his career. He was really involved on that first drive, including the nice little touchdown play where he kind of flips up into the air. But then he also had that long catch and run for
yeah.
40s.
39.
Yeah, close to 40 yards. Broke a tackle or two on that one. Seems like in the JMO vein, we've been talking in past weeks about what's going on with Laporta. Why aren't they getting the ball? Are we worried about the production? So it was just nice to see him get back centrally involved. And building off of that in the tight end room, Ross Dwelly gets 16 snaps in this game.
Yeah.
I don't know
Some is
anything
up.
about him. I don't.
So he was kind of playing that H-back role where he was sometimes a fullback, sometimes he was a tight end. The Lions were motioning out of I form a lot in this game where they would line up and then they'd switch to either a single back look with a couple of tight ends on the line, or they would kick all the way out to shotgun. It does seem like Johnny Morton likes the idea of having a fullback more than Ben Johnson did, which makes sense, more of an old school coach. Brock Wright has filled in that role as well, but it is interesting to see the Lions get more creative with some of their jumbo packages and just the personnel that they're using on the field. They use like using three tight ends is not something that we've seen a ton of. We've seen them use six offensive line and two tight ends in jumbo sets, but we don't see a whole lot of three tight ends, and that is something that they're bringing back, it seems like.
I don't. When did he get added to the active roster? Like I don't remember hearing about him at all.
Was he or was he just elevated from the practice squad?
He might have been because I
I'll
kept
find out.
seeing 82 out there, and I'm like, who is 82? And then I look up his name, and I'm like, I've literally never heard that name before. It says that he's in his eighth season from San Diego University, where Jim Harbaugh coached once upon a time. But I know literally nothing about this guy, so just was kind of surprising that he went from unknown to 16 snaps in this game.
Yeah, I mean, good for him. I will say with the fullback stuff, how long until we get Penei Sewell lined up at fullback on the goal line? Come on,
It's
give me a
coming. It's
William Perry
coming.
moment.
Coming eventually.
I will keep advocating for a way to get Sewell a touchdown in his career. It's gonna happen. I don't know. It needs to happen. That like because Taylor Decker's gotten receptions before. Obviously, we all remember the reporting eligible fiasco. We got to get Penei Sewell. Hey, I want the hook and ladder playback from Dallas last year, but yeah, the Lions have some options with that.
Well, I think did we talk about the Caden Proctor play with Alabama on the last podcast? I don't remember if that made it on the show or not, but the one
I
Alabama
don't.
Alabama ran the play where they threw the pass to the screen to the tackle who ran it in or
All
ran it.
right,
Did he get into the end zone or did he get tackled just short? I don't remember, but
I don't
a lot of
recall.
people flagged that one as like the Lions should run that with Sewell, and they should. Like if you have a tackle who has good enough hands and body control to function as a receiver, you should do it because that was a great play because it's DBs trying to tackle an offensive tackle. And normally you would do that just by tripping him up or whatever because he's big and he's in theory not super coordinated. But the tackle that Alabama ran it with looked good as a runner. He was balancing himself well. He was squeezing the ball between his hands and he looked really tough to bring down. And Sewell might be athletic enough to run that play. So I would definitely put that one in the playbook.
I just got a real sick idea. And by sick, I mean like sicko idea. Because we were talking about Wildcat. Give me Penei Sewell at Wildcat QB. Because we've seen him. He's capable of throwing a football. And we've seen what happens when he has the ball in his hands, where it takes like four people to drag him down. You give me a 4th and 1 inside the red zone, give me a Penei Sewell Wildcat QB. Aside from that, I think that's about it for the offense. So we'll move over to the defense. Number one, Aiden Hutchinson might be cursed. He has 3 sacks in the last 2 games that have been now taken off the board due to penalties. And I can't help but feel bad for this man because he, eh, for all intents and purposes, could be leading the league in sacks right now. He still has 5 in 5 games, which is very good. But this poor man cannot get these sacks to stay on the board to save his life right now due to his teammates, well, and himself in this one with the offsides taking penalties.
It's really unfortunate, and the one that nullified the safety in this game, pretty legit.
Yep.
I don't have a big take on it. I don't like when defensive holdings overturn 3rd and 16 with a 5 yard penalty, which I've talked about before. But when it overturns a sack, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can always argue that if there isn't the holding, then the quarterback gets the ball out and blah blah blah, and it's not a sack. And Arnold grabbed a good piece of jersey and don't really have a lot of argument there. So just a bummer. But they ended up getting a sack later. Hutchinson got a sack later, and they ended up getting a safety later. So it ended up being okay.
Well, the Hutch sack that he got later was like insane, just like power that he put on that hit on Jake Browning on I've never seen a defensive end blow up a flea flicker like that, where the ball gets back to Browning for half a second and he is just decked by Hutchinson off the edge. That little delay from the running back pitching it back to Browning was ended up being his downfall. That was a crazy play. Speaking of Terrion, though, that sequence after the non-safety was hilarious because so he takes a penalty nullifying a safety, then he gets back-to-back PBUs, including a dropped interception, and then he should have had his first career interception. It was a gift, but Kirby Joseph came flying in and stole it from him at the last second and knocked him to the ground. Very active day for Terrion, but he had some nice moments in coverage. But the secondary as a whole also had some great moments. Jake Browning was also brutal for 3 quarters, but Amik Robertson gets a pick. Alex Anzalone gets a pick, and Kirby Joseph, as I just mentioned, got one. What did you see from the secondary in this one as they shut down these Bengals receivers for the first 3 quarters and Jake Browning?
Well, I think you can make the case that through 3 quarters, this was an excellent coverage day for the Lions across the board. There was a lot of really good moments from these guys, good PBUs. You have Robertson gets the interception. You have the linebackers were great in coverage. Arnold had a lot of good reps in there. Rocky Sin has a PBU on T. Higgins deep. Like there's just a lot of good stuff going on. Kirby Joseph had a PBU early in the game before his own interception. So it felt like, wow, this is a great game. Like I love the way the DBs are playing. And then the final couple drives there in that fourth quarter, I was like, ooh, that kind of left us a bit of a sour taste in our mouth. Certainly the deep touchdown. The first touchdown from Browning to Chase is just like,
That's a great throw and catch.
yeah.
Like,
He's on the run, rolls to the sideline, fires a ball out of bounds that you then have the lean toe tap to bring it back in. And it's like, yeah, not much you can say there. And that drive, by the way, should have not happened. The Lions forced a turnover on downs and got off the field. And then they threw one of the worst DPI flags of all time on Anzalone against Mike Gesicki. Just horrendous. He doesn't make a move to come back to the ball. He doesn't do
know where the
anything.
ball is.
There doesn't even any real contact. And he's just crying to the referee, which my opinion is, let's say you got literally tackled while you were trying to catch the ball. If you start crying to the referee, I'm not going to throw the flag. Like, come on, dude. Make we don't need to see that. Like they'll handle it correctly. You don't need to cry to the referee. So that was frustrating alone, but that drive should have been over with. And then the second one is really just the Robertson bust. And then the third one, not as good from all around. I don't think it totally erases the full day, but I would have liked a better close because it was such a good first, really 2/3 of that game.
Yeah, we were trending towards the Lions having like less than 15 points allowed in back-to-back games, or like total. Like they allowed 10 against the Browns, and I was sitting there starting the fourth quarter, like the Lions might get out of here with like 3 points allowed. This is fantastic. The Bengals were active, and the Bengals fans were booing the team relentlessly when they did kick a field goal in the first half on that very bizarre end of first half sequence where there's like 30 seconds left and they decide they're just done playing football, I guess. That was very weird. But yeah, the Robertson bust was unfortunate. At the same time, Jamar Chase is a top two wide receiver in the league. That's going to happen sometimes against elite receivers, especially when you don't have safety help over the top.
Yeah, I get the argument of like he shouldn't be biting on the double move in this situation. The Lions have a huge lead, just keep falling back, blah blah blah. Unfortunate, but at the end of the day, it's a bust. All you can really do is move on. And I think that this game, in a lot of ways, is what we keep talking about with the Lions defense, where I think I'm trying to remember the DVOA numbers have them very high. It's like top five
Yeah,
ish on the
I'll pull
defensive
them up.
side. And if you look at the various efficiency charts, like the EPA per play chart that people always put up each week, they look very good in that one too. That was the same formula with last year, as we talked about, before all the injuries set in, like through 10, 11 weeks last season. The Lions were at the very top in defense, despite not having sparkling yardage numbers. And the reason is because those fancy stats absolutely love it when you force turnovers and when you get negative plays. And that's what the whole theory of Lions defense is, that they don't look great on pure efficiency from a yardage standpoint, down to down. They allow a lot of yards, but they force field goals and they have a high havoc rate. And in this game, there was a ton of havoc. They got some sacks, they got three interceptions, and that will grade out very kindly to your DVOA and EPA metrics.
And this is kind of the flaw with DVOA because this is from Jeremy Reisman on Twitter. Before the Monday, like this doesn't include the Monday Night Football game, the Lions defense is ranked higher than their offense. The Lions defense is second in the league with fifth in pass D, fourth in run D. The Lions offense is fourth in pass and run and fourth overall. And overall, the Lions are the number one team in DVOA. Now, they are tied for the best record in the NFL. They have the most points scored in the NFL, I believe, by a decent margin, I'm pretty sure. They're averaging 34.8 so far. And yet the offense is not, because the Lions on offense are much more efficiency based. They're down to down, and they haven't been generating explosives at a super high rate. So they are still fourth, which is fantastic. But DVOA is going to grade that a little bit lower than the havoc that they create defensively.
Right, and I think we'll get a good test of sorts with this defense here in the next 2 weeks. The Chiefs have looked pretty good offensively the last couple of games, and then Tampa Bay, their offense doesn't seem to be stopped at the moment. They played a heck of a shootout game this weekend against Seattle, so I think we'll get a good reading on this unit before the bye week, and then that can probably inform what the priorities will be at the trade deadline. The managing the corner situation will be tricky because I did think that was another factor in that final touchdown
Yeah.
drive the Bengals had. At that point, with Terrion out, it felt like, oh boy, we're just kind of, because Avante Maddox gets dunked on by, and he had good coverage on that play. He
Yeah.
got dunked on by, I think, what's his name,
Iosivas,
Iosivas,
or
yeah,
I
something
don't know
like
how to
that.
pronounce it.
It's like a Romanian name, but
Yeah.
um, that drive felt like that, and there may be some spillover with that if those are the guys you have to field a corner, which it seems like it in the coming weeks. But at the very least, we'll get a good sense of the defensive line and how this linebacker play holds up. Because I think right now, this was one of the best linebacker games I can remember from the Lions. He had two different PBUs that ended drives in addition
Yeah.
to the interception.
And
And
a
then
third PBU as well.
okay, yeah. And then Jack Campbell playing as good as
Everywhere.
he's ever played. I mean, stacking a couple weeks in a row now where he's playing at an all pro level. And I'm really excited to see what that looks like against some top-notch offenses.
Yeah, Jack Campbell might be the best run defender from at linebacker in the league right now, the way he's been playing the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's just starting to click. The last year we saw the light start to come on, and now it's all kind of coming together for him. So that's something to be optimistic about. And honestly, with Terry on before the injury, that one flag wasn't good, but I liked his game overall. Besides that, I
He
thought he had a
he
nice
also
day.
had he also had a garbage DPI that was like the ball was past Jamar Chase before he was touched by Terrion, and it was like it was uncatchable and it was just dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somewhere in between the Terrion camps. Like, it's definitely, he's still a liability, I would say, for the Lions in some regards, but I don't think it's totally a lost cause because we see enough good reps, and you still believe that you can just smooth out some of those issues with his game, and hopefully he's able to come back in a reasonable amount of time. I would take as much time as he needs, but you'd like him to get some more games in the regular season before the playoffs, just to see if he can get a few weeks to build on each other, because there's been moments, but I'd like to see more.
Yeah. So aside from that, on the defensive line side of things, it seems like things have gotten really quiet outside of Aiden Hutchinson as far as the pass rush goes. However, it seems like reinforcements are on the way. Zalem McNeil is pushing to get back as soon as possible. How important is getting Aleem back into the mix going to be for this defensive line?
I mean, obviously, it would be a big deal. I don't think the pass rush has been bad, like as you said, quiet, but I don't like they're still getting some pressure, and
Yeah,
Muhammad has a rep in each game, one or two good moments, and Derek Barnes gets the sack on the safety where he just beats the guard clean. So, he, yeah, nice rush. So I don't think it's a dire situation. But getting McNeil back, especially for some of the biggest games on the schedule, would be huge. Especially, I mean, the one I'm circling that you would really love to have him back in a closer to 100%. I don't know if he'll ever be 100% this year, to be frank, just coming off the injury he is. But as much as possible, the one I'm circling is the Green Bay game because obviously that one is huge for the division, but also just because that is one of the top pass protecting teams in the league. That's been the hallmark of their line. And we saw the way they handled the Lions the first time around. So I would love to have McNeil back closer to his usual self because if you get him back and you get that more of a pass rush presence in the middle, that then makes life even more simple on guys like Muhammad on the outside, on Barnes. It can give more problems on your blitzes. Like it would just open everything up. And I hope that McNeil isn't rushing it back. But obviously, if he is getting close to ready to go, then you got to trust him and bring him along. And it may just be a slow ramp up, too, over the course of it, right? His first game back, he might play 10, 15 snaps. Then you just kind of slowly build him up as he gets back into playing speed because he hasn't been able to really practice properly in a training camp setting. You only practice so much during the week in the NFL season. So I think I assume he will be rusty to begin with.
yeah. And Tyleek and DJ Reader and Roy Lopez, like that trio has been perfectly fine. I will also going back to Jack Campbell, and we've talked about how good of a run defender he's been. Part of that is just the how good Tyleek and DJ Reader have been at soaking up blocks and opening up those lanes for the linebackers to flow through without too many problems. Like it's been the cohesion between the interior of the defensive line and the linebackers has been really special. I still have some reservations about the the edges against the run. Hutch has been so aggressive at biting on fakes and on counters so far this season, and opposite him, no one is really equipped to defend the run that well right now. So still work in progress there. No idea what's going on with Josh Pascal at this point. Davenport's still going to be out a little while. So it seems like this just might be an ongoing problem.
Yeah, you'd like to have Pascal back at some point, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of an update. And Davenport, who knows? Maybe he's available for the playoffs. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he'll come back in December, then get injured again. I don't know. I'm not really following Davenport injury news that closely because it just kind of feels like a waste of time at this point.
The one guy I'm surprised about is Makai Wingo because he's been a healthy scratch for pretty much the whole season. What do you make of the Lions keeping him off the field while some of these other interior guys, like they've had Lacey and Wheat playing over Wingo, and it just seemed like given the Lions' lack of like I said, they've been getting some pressure, but not a ton. Wouldn't it make sense to get a pass rusher like Wingo in the mix?
Yeah, I've been a little surprised by that, especially because he played, what was it, the Bears game? He plays a ton of snaps, like 25 or 30 in that game. And then he scratched against the Ravens the very next week, and I don't think he's been activated since then. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I haven't seen anything from Lacey or Wheat to suggest that these guys have much in the repertoire. We talked about Lacey last week, I think, where I just kind of said I don't really see what he does or how does he really contribute to the team. Um, so in that frame of mind, it doesn't seem like it should be a high bar for Wingo to jump over. And we saw games last season where Wingo was providing some juice in the interior pass rush. So I would like to see more of Wingo, but we know how heavily they prioritize run defense, and maybe they just don't feel he is where he needs to be a defensive tackle from that standpoint.
Yeah. And aside from that, do you have any other notes that you want to mention on defense?
Mm, not really. I mean, I mentioned those couple Rocky and
Yep.
Vontae Maddox moments. I would guess that it'll be Maddox as nickel when they use a nickel, and then Robertson and Yasin on the outside if Arnold's out this week. I don't want to have that be if Tyrion is out a longer period of time, which the second opinion said he isn't, but let's say for the sake of argument that he was, I think you have to trade for a corner. Like your depth is so thin there now that doesn't feel like a very tenable thing for a lot of weeks. But for this upcoming week, you can probably wiggle through it, and that's where these signings are really important. I talked about this during our maybe it was our training camp episode. It was one of those episodes where I said that those two signings, Maddox and Rakiasen, kind of went under the radar as really important signings for this team because those are players that have had experience in the past. They've played starting roles on teams not that long ago, Maddox especially on a very good team in Philadelphia's case. And I feel more comfortable with those guys out there than if it is Vildor and Dorsey as the two that are sliding in. Um, and that's a nice asset to have. And those were good pickups by Brad Holmes. And hopefully they can hold it together just enough until Arnold is back and maybe you make a trade or something.
Yeah, because once Reed and Arnold are back, you're
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, you're gonna probably go until after the Vikings game coming out of the bye before those guys are back. So you're probably a month before we get so you need short-term help for sure. Whether like honestly, you'd sign guys off practice squads off the street, whatever, for depth, but you got to be able to survive a month here. Special teams, wow, have they turned a corner in the last couple of weeks? Jake Bates has really dialed in the kickoff to have it land inside the five every single time. He's been getting it to the goal line a lot. The kick coverage was fantastic. The punt coverage was they downed. Fox had. Uh, Four punts inside the 10-yard line in this game. One of them downed at the three for great play by Tesla. They didn't allow a punt return in this game, so the Gunners were doing a good job getting downfield quickly. It was just a very Jacob Sailors also had a fantastic return to start this game as well over the 40-yard line. So really seems like Dave Phipp has kind of righted the ship to an extent.
Yeah, it seems like they've gotten the mojo back. The six kickoffs they had were returned to the 25, 19, 28, 27, 37, 27. I mean, that's
So
five for
one
six
bad.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's very nice. As you mentioned, Jack Fox with a great game. Just really smooth. From a precision and execution standpoint, this was by far the best special teams game we've had so far this season, and very nice to see. Very reassuring after what really seemed like a problem spot through a bad preseason and then a bad first couple of weeks.
Yep. So all that to say for this game, good game. Maybe not great considering the opponent, but
We
we'll
got
take it.
one more thing to mention here. Fourth and six at the plus 41, leading 14-0 with 4 minutes to go in the second quarter. The Lions punt in that
Yeah.
situation. What are your thoughts on that one?
So I was fully expecting a field goal because it was about a 58, 59-yard field goal, which is within Bates's range. Based on how the defense had been playing to that point, I understand why Campbell did what he did. And I don't necessarily disagree with it. However, if that situation comes up against Kansas City, I would be a little bit more aggressive going for points there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's an example of a situation in which your decision making has to match the kind of game that you're in. And from that standpoint, you're leading by 2 touchdowns. The other team's offense looks hapless. They've been hapless in the prior weeks. You don't really, it's outdoors. I know it was good weather, but 58, 59 outdoors.
Can get sketchy.
Yeah. And I think the issue there is if you miss it, gives them great field position. And this is an offense that can't really move the ball, at least to that point in the game. So I was probably leaning more between go for it and punt. And I'm still like, 6 yards. If it's 3 yards, I think you go. Four,
What would your limit be
probably.
like as far as going for it? Like, what's your threshold? Is it 3 yards or is like 4th and 5, like four?
It's somewhere in that range. But by the time you get to 4th and 6, I think punt was the right idea, especially when you have Jack Fox. Like if you have different punters,
The
you
Bengals punter.
see, yeah. if if your punter isn't very good or isn't very accurate, and he's just going to go out there and blast it into the second row of seats, then kind of a waste of time to me. But if you have a punter where you feel like you can pin them deep, I think you do it because then you have field position on your side. You can force a quick punt, and then you can get right back to where you were and reclaim field position and get back on the move. So I think it was the right call. But if you're against the Chiefs, if you're against the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, if you're against the Bills, any team with a great offense, then I think you have to go. Decision making has to mirror the kind of game you're in, and I think it did perfectly there.
Yeah. Um, Aside from that, do you have any other notes on this game?
Nope, that was it.
So, moving on to a quick recap around the league, we can kind of speed run this. The Niners, the very injured Niners, take down the Rams last Thursday night. Very impressive win for them in overtime there. The Browns almost did a funny thing in London against the Vikings, but a last second touchdown for Minnesota helps them escape Europe with at least one win. It would have been really funny. I was very annoyed that the Vikings were able to burn 2 road games on European dates this year. And they got to stay in Europe while one of the teams had to fly in the week of the game. Like it just seemed like a really stupid advantage for them to have because now they're going to have more home games than away games technically this year in the US. But at least they lost one of them.
I'm just not worried about the Vikings.
I
They
just want
may
them to
make
suffer.
they may make the playoffs. It's certainly possible. They don't look like a serious threat to me. That if the Lions are trying to win the Super Bowl, I don't think we have a lot of reason to be concerned about the Vikings. They seem pretty mediocre to me, and Wentz played pretty okay in this game, and it continues to further quarterback discussion in Minnesota. That was really my takeaway.
Now, as for a more interesting storyline, the pitchforks are already starting to come out for Aaron Glenn in New York. What say you about the Jets' 0-5 start to this season?
Well, some of the enthusiasm I had earlier in the year is definitely fading. Um, Losing by 2 to Pittsburgh, losing by 2 to Tampa Bay, that was very nice to see and made you feel like okay, they're feisty. They're battling in these games and then not so much the last couple of weeks. They did lose narrowly in on the scoreboard to Miami, but Miami is bad and that felt like a game they needed to win, or one of the games that was winnable on their schedule, we should say, and then they lose by 15 to Dallas. I don't I don't really know if I should be faulting Aaron Glenn necessarily. Like this just seems like such a hopeless job that the problems with the Jets organization go from the top down. If they fire him and keep moving along, he'll just be another sacrificial lamb and then they'll hire a new one. Like it just feels like such a career killing job that he shouldn't have taken it in the first place, but I get the urge to be a head coach because it's such a rare opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm getting 2021 Lions vibes from the Jets in terms of like the quality of the roster. The difference is I don't think the Jets ownership is nearly as good as what the Lions have had. So I don't think they'll have the patience to wait 2 years before they start actually winning games.
No, I mean, I think what we know about the Jets ownership and the problems they've had under Woody Johnson, that they'll probably, maybe it'll be one season, maybe it'll be 2 seasons, but they'll probably push Aaron Glenn under the bus and then they'll hire someone else to be in the same spot. Maybe Aaron Glenn will come back to Detroit in some capacity. I don't know, but it looks pretty unfortunate for him.
There is certainly a world where, this year Glenn retains his job. Next year, Kelvin Shepard maybe gets head coaching buzz, and then Aaron Glenn comes back as the DC if Shepard ever leaves. Um, I don't know. I've seen a lot of talk about how Glenn's defenses were actually really bad, and he didn't deserve the head coaching job at all. It's There's been a lot of talk about him, so just something to keep an eye on as the season progresses. The Broncos did the Lions a massive favor by beating the Philadelphia Eagles and in a comeback win, allowing the Lions to tie the Eagles for there's a couple of teams at the top now tied at 4-1, but there's no undefeated teams left. We'll talk about the Bills in a second. Shout out that Broncos defense. That looks real good.
Well, a major choke by the Eagles. They were up 17-3 going into the fourth quarter, gave up 18 points in the fourth quarter and scored none of their own. Really nice win for the Broncos, especially after some tough losses. That game against the Colts was brutal. The game against the Chargers, they were really close in. So they look like a solid 3-2 team at the moment. And the Eagles kind of are they like speed running the Chiefs last year in terms of every week is close, and most weeks
Yeah.
they narrowly survive. But I mean, because they've won by 4, 3, 7, 6, and then a loss by 4. I mean, every game's been competitive. And granted, they've played a very hard schedule to date, but they should have probably lost to the Rams, who choked that game. They just haven't looked dominant so far this season, despite the fact that prior to this they'd won, was it 19 of 20 games, 20 of their last 21, something like that. They've
Yeah, it was
been,
the first time in like a year and a bit that Hurts has lost a game he started.
yeah. So, um, impressive in the win column, but not really impressive necessarily in the style points so far this season.
Well, they'll keep playing close games, and AJ Brown will keep having these weird abstract quotes after every game, talking about how the journey is more important than the destination or something. And
They're the best bad vibes team of all time. Like they
oh,
even the year they win the Super Bowl, they have bad vibes. They're a team that doesn't seem to like each other or get along, but they're so talented that most of the time they win. So
yeah, Howie Roseman is so unbelievably good at his job, and it seems like Nick Sirianni is so unbelievably not. But he keeps
well,
getting handed these great teams.
part of Roseman's thing though is that he assembles teams with great levels of talent in part because he just
Yes.
picks the problem characters who fall down the draft board, and then they kind of harness their collective anger to win games. But it doesn't seem the locker room doesn't seem great there.
A prerequisite to be drafted by the Eagles is did you have a DUI while at Georgia?
Yeah, did you ever win a drag race? I did want to get on the record that fans, people who are Eagles, Phillies, and Penn State fans had an all-time bad 3-day period there over the weekend. The Phillies painfully lose 2 playoff games at home. Penn State has maybe the most humiliating upset defeat in the Big Ten in the last 20 years. And then the Eagles blow a 17-3 fourth quarter lead. So bummer for those fans. That's what I have to say about that.
The same time, I don't think I can bring myself to be to feel bad for Eagles fans. So, uh, I don't want to say deserve, but they talk a lot when their teams are
Yeah,
good.
yes, they do.
So, aside from that, as you mentioned, the Buccaneers beat the Seahawks in a shootout of a game, 38 to 35. Emeka Egbuka is real good.
Yeah, I will say that I was never the biggest Igbuka fan in college. I was never felt super scared by him, especially in comparison to Marvin Harrison Jr. But in the NFL, it's kind of been the reversal so far. MHJ is starting to come online a little bit these last couple of weeks, but it's been very choppy, and Igbuka's just been off from the very beginning, just on fire. So give him credit for that. He looks great, and I didn't really see any of that game because it was on during the Lion game, but everything I saw was just a lot of scoring. Darnold threw a really bad interception in the final minute, in his
Yeah.
own territory that set the Bucks up to win. The Lions and Bucks are going to score a lot of points in a couple weeks when they play on Monday Night Football. I think that's that's the main takeaway at the moment.
Speaking of Marvin Harrison Jr., the Cardinals are a
This is the
disaster.
this was the game of the week. We have to talk about this game.
So for those of you who missed this game, go watch it or go rewatch it because this was the greatest, most hilarious collapse in a while. The Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward, get the first win of the season after being down. What was it, 21-3 in the fourth quarter or the second half, and the a very amazing sequence of events happens. First of all, Amari DiMarcado breaks off a 76-yard touchdown run, except for he did the stupid thing. He slowed down. He started jogging from like the 25, and then he drops the ball before the end zone. It results in a touchback. So you take a touchdown off the board. Jonathan Gannon, the Cardinals head coach, then loses his mind and starts yelling at DeMarcado on the sideline. And we found out yesterday that Jonathan Gannon got fined by the Cardinals. The organization fined their own head coach for yelling at a player for dropping the ball instead of scoring a touchdown. So, first of all, hilarious. And why do players keep dropping the ball so early? Why is this a thing?
Yeah, so they were up 21-3 in the second quarter, and then it was 21-6 at halftime. It was 21-6 when the DeMarcado play happens. Um, I what is there to say about that? Like it just keeps happening. It doesn't seem that hard. It should be that should be like an auto bench for several weeks if it happens. Like it just completely unacceptable. It
Yeah.
You're in the NFL. It just cannot happen. And coaches need to be dealing with that very strongly. The clips of this game, again, this was on during the Lion game, so I wasn't watching it live, but when I saw some of the clips later, I was like, you compare that game to presumably what we will see when the Lions play the Chiefs this weekend, or Ravens Bills in week one, or pick any of these high intensity matchups between elite teams. And you can put that next to this game. It's like they're playing a different sport. Like
And I like to emphasize
not
that
just the
point.
ball dropping, but the
Yeah,
interception play.
this
And then the one where they snap the ball and it hits Kyler in the face and then it bounces down and the Titans guys fall on. What in the world? This looked like a
Cardinals
high school
football.
game.
So, and yeah, we have to mention this interception play. So, Cam Ward rolls out to his left. The Titans are in the red zone or on the edge of the red zone. Cam Ward throws an interception. Brutal. Cardinals get the big stop that they need. And then on the return, the defender Taylor Demerson fumbles the football. And then both teams decide that we are done playing football. We're going to play soccer for a bit. The ball rolls into the end zone where the geriatric Tyler Lockett recovers it for a touchdown. The ball was intercepted at the 10-yard line or something. And somehow the ball ends up in the end zone for the Titans to recover. What?
My
Have you ever
favorite,
seen a play like that?
I can't remember one, honestly. My favorite thing about this game was there was a tweet that showed the DeMarcado play and it was like, this play will lead to the Jets drafting the worst quarterback of all time, first overall.
Yeah. Yep. That. And then the ball hits Kyler Murray in the face, which I we've seen bad snaps before. We've seen QBs mishandle snaps before. How often you see a QB just not catch the ball and it hits him square in the face?
It's not common. The Cardinals are now 2-3 on the year. Every game they've played is close. It kind of feels like, I mean, where is this franchise going? Let's say they finish 7-10 or something. Like, how much longer are they building around Kyler Murray?
Not.
Are they? I mean, it just kind of
I
feels like. I mean, I can't believe he's been in the league like 7 years now, and he doesn't have like a single moment of note. They had one season where they got out to a hot start and then
he has
tanked the
one
second
moment of
half.
note. It's just not a good note. It's when he flung the ball from his own end zone against the Rams and
Yes, yes, yeah. I mean it. I don't know, man. This Cardinals organization just seems
Lost.
in a bad place.
Yeah, they are real bad, and I fully expect that Kyler Murray will be on a different team next year because it seems like he's a fine starting quarterback. He's not anything special. He's not worth the contract, and the Cardinals ownership is gonna have to they're gonna have to bottom out. So they won't bottom out as long as Kyler is there. Um, so one of the dumbest games of all time. The Patriots impressive road win against the Bills, take the Bills 0. Um, New England gonna push for the playoffs this year. Drake May looks legit.
Yeah, I he looks really good. I think him and Jane Daniels are clearly the two best guys from that class, and we're waiting to see on the other ones. He's separated, and Vrabel was a nice hire. So credit to the Patriots; they look good.
Then, as we get into a preview of Week 6 here, the Jacksonville Jaguars defeat the Kansas City Chiefs on with a last minute victory where we were talking about silly plays. How about Trevor Lawrence falling down twice on the goal line, getting up, able to run in for a game-winning touchdown, mainly because Chris Jones decided he didn't want to play football anymore and he just stood there and let Lawrence run around. And Devin Lloyd is a just gonna be on a defensive player of the year track at this point. He leads the league with 4 interceptions. When's the last time you saw a linebacker leading the league in interceptions? He had a 99-yard pick six in this game, and the Chiefs look very weird and not at all convincing. They are now 2-3 on the year. This is I I will say I'm a little scared playing the Chiefs coming off a loss, but they also don't look very good.
Yeah, on the Jaguar point, I wanted to talk about. We say we havoc rate with the Lions. How about havoc rate with the Jaguars? They have 14 takeaways this season, which I believe is most in the NFL, and that's only in 5 games. They're getting outgained by 6 yards per game, but they are just
I,
really tilting the tables on the takeaways.
I can take that one further. The Jags have 14 turnovers in 5 weeks. They had nine all of last year, or something. It was something like that. It was a crazy stat they showed on the broadcast.
The pick six was a great play. You don't get to see 99-yard or 100-yard pick sixes anymore very much, but usually when they happen, they are the out route against the corner, and then he jumps it and runs down the sideline. Getting one in that fashion was probably the closest we'll get to the James Harrison 100-yard pick six return from the Super Bowl, like again.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed watching that play. A lot of fun, dramatic win for the Jags. Kind of a I don't know what you should say, like blooper reel touchdown for Trevor Lawrence there to win the game, where he gets stepped on and then like hobbles into the end zone and dives in. Wasn't the
Yeah.
cleanest game of all time, but I'm happy
No.
for the Jags. Honestly, it's kind of fun that them and the Colts are both 4-1 and looking pretty solid.
What a weird division the AFC South is, man. Like that we were talking last week, like the Colts are probably going to win the division by default. Well, here come the Jags with Liam Cohen leading the way to something.
And better, it breaks up the Texans at least, which I'm all for. The Chiefs, they are two, as you mentioned, 2-3. Mostly been close games so far this season. They beat the Giants pretty convincingly, beat the Ravens without Lamar pretty convincingly, but they had a 6-point loss to the Chargers, 3-point loss to the Eagles, 3-point loss to the Jags. I would expect this game to be pretty competitive. I think Mahomes has looked better the last few weeks, where he's started to get more consistent receiving from his receivers. I still am not. I don't think this is a great team at the moment. They're probably a good team, is what I would say, but they haven't found their fastball yet, so to speak. The running game in particular stands out to me as not particularly potent. Kareem Hunt, 3.8 yards per carry. Pacheco, 4.2. Mahomes is their leading rusher, which I think is kind of says a lot at the moment about where they're at. I think Lions will be able to stop them on the run and get them in longer third down situations, and then they'll get off the field some, and they'll probably get cooked on some because that's just what happens with Mahomes. You get pressure on him, may not matter because he knows what he's doing.
Yep, Xavier Worthy and Tyquan Thornton are going to have a deep shot or two in this game. It's going to happen. But like you said, the run game isn't great. The Chiefs' defense has also been shockingly mediocre against the run. They're giving up 123 on the ground this season, which is 21st in the league. The Chiefs are pretty steady in the like right around the fringe top 10 in every category aside from that in terms of their per game metrics. This is the last game that Rashee Rice is suspended for, so the Lions kind of get a break there because once he comes back, the Chiefs will get a good possession receiver over the middle that will do wonders for them as far as moving the ball because Kelsey is aging and the other guys are more speedsters than possession threats. Hollywood Brown has been fine, but the Chiefs' offense is Mahomes and his band of merry men, and they'll go as far as Mahomes will take them. They do have a very good defense. We've talked for a long time about how Spags is should be in the coordinator Hall of Fame. So when you look at this matchup as a whole, what scares you the most?
You kind of want to say Arrowhead, even though it probably shouldn't, because the Lions have been a great road warrior team for a while now. But that's an intimidating environment. We know the Lions won there last time. I think if this game is at home, I feel like, yeah, I think the Lions should win this game. Just being with the home crowd and that kind of thing. But you flip it around, you're on the road against a team that's a good team, and it's a tougher test. I think in terms of actual matchups, the left tackle situation has to be the main thing because the Chiefs are going to score some points against the Lions defense, but the Lions in theory should have an offense good enough to outscore that. But if they're allowing consistent pressure around that left edge, yeah, on top of whatever's going to happen with your interior line against Chris Jones and any stunts and different things that Spagnuolo is going to throw at them, that's how you beat the Lions at the moment on that side of the ball. You get pressure, and if they get pressure and they get a turnover or two, as we saw last week, that strip sack against the Bengals, okay, it's against the Bengals. If you do that against the Chiefs, you might well lose the game, and that's where the concern to me has to be.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to George Karlaftis lining up
Yeah,
against Manu or Dan Skipper because he doesn't have the same superstar reputation, which means that Johnny Morton might be a little bit more inclined to leave the left tackle one on one, which is going to not be a good time. I will say, I found it very amusing that the line opened as Chiefs being 1.5 point favorites at home. And after they lost to the Jaguars on Monday night, that line got pushed to 2.5 point favorites. So the people are betting on the Chiefs big in this one.
yeah. I mean, I think it on paper is like a bounce back game for the Chiefs, and when you do those like wins and losses thing at the start of the season, where you try to predict every team's record, and you just go win, loss, win, loss. This is an obvious like, oh, Chiefs get a win, get them back in the win column. Lions, oh, on the road against the Chiefs, will give them an L. Blah blah blah. So it's not as much of a schedule loss as the Ravens seemed like at the start of the year to me, but it is pretty obviously one of their two toughest games the rest of the season, in my opinion. It's this one and at Philadelphia. Those are the two that are
Yeah.
the most difficult.
I think where I'm sitting right now, after the Lions beat the Ravens, I was like, okay, the Lions should be 4-1 after 5 weeks. They should beat the Browns. They should beat the Bengals. Now going into the last two games before the bye with Chiefs and Bucks, give me one of them. I don't care which one. Get me to 5 wins for the bye week.
Yeah, I think that's the right mindset. Like, if you win this game, then you're kind of playing with house money against Tampa Bay. If you lose this one, then you're like, okay, we need to come home, take care of business, get into the bye. Just split these next two. If you're 5-2 with the bye week, I think you'll be in good shape, especially with Green Bay already has a loss and a tie. You'll get your chance at them later. They've still got some tough games on their schedule. So just see if you can't scratch this one out. And, if you come up short, then try again the next week.
Should mention, speaking of Green Bay, just before we wrap here, the Bengals did trade for Joe Flacco. Can Joe Flacco do it again? Can Joe Flacco beat the Packers twice in like a 3 week span, 4 week span?
I wonder how many quarterbacks in history would have done that. Not the Packers, just to beat the same team two times with two different teams in the span of like a 3 week period. That would be a remarkable achievement.
Yeah, so Go Bengals. I'm cheering for the Jamar Chase legacy game. Aside from that, that is going to be where we wrap this show. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for being here. Remember to hit like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, hit follow, and leave us a review if you're on podcasting platforms. You can find the show at Payne and Drain on Twitter. You can find me at ZachPayne41, Alex at Alex_Drain. And we'll catch up with you guys next week after, hopefully, another Lions win, but after another Lions game. So until then, guys, cheers.